I'm Ceri from West Kent Mind. I'm the Training and Development Manager. I'm here today with Casey from Spark Communications. Casey, you attended one of my mental health first aid courses recently. I was really keen to hear about your experience and how you found it.
It was brilliant. And I'm not just saying that because I'm shut in a room with you.
And
It
because you have
was
to.
yeah, no, it was something that I don't think I'd properly thought about. And then the team at SPA said, "We're looking to do some mental health first aid training. We've got Lucy, one of my colleagues, who wants to do it, but it would be nice to have a male colleague do it as well." So there are a few of us. There's only 3 or 4 of us here. So, it came to me and I thought, "Yeah, do you know what? Like, it's something that I didn't realize I cared about as much as I did when we started talking about it, and then it was like, yeah, this is something I need to be involved with. So went for it, and I had to do the virtual course, so we did it on Zoom over 4 days,
Yeah,
was it?
four
Yeah,
mornings.
4
Yeah.
half days, and it was super engaging, like, breaking off into different groups, talking with people from different companies, rather than being sort of isolated within just our team. It was nice to hear other people's experiences and why they've got involved as well. So, yeah, really inspiring to hear some people's stories. Some people were really open about why they've wanted to do it, learn the techniques, the sort of information, and how to offer support, not advice, of course. Um, but yeah, really, really interesting. And I feel like I've not just been able to take stuff away from that for work, but also for my personal life as well. And the conversations I have with friends and family outside of the workplace. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to hear that. When I first did a mental health first aid course about 7 years ago, probably now, I hadn't done much mental health training before that. Um, and I had that same sort of experience that it completely changed some of my ideas, some of my approaches, how I thought about my own mental health. That was a really big thing for me as well. And that was what part of what got me into the field of mental health and working with a charity. Um, and yes, you came along as workplace training, but I always say when I deliver the course that the skills, the tools, the knowledge is so useful for our personal lives as well. Had you done any mental health workshops or training before then?
I don't think so. No. Something that we sort of spoke about. So that my previous life before Spa was in broadcasting, and a lot of sort of when those mental health awareness weeks, and sort of you hear those stories in the news of people with poor mental health that are either running marathons, for example, to raise money, bits and pieces. So speaking about it in that sense, about the sort of like headlines, I guess, of mental health, but nothing sort of personal, one to one, learning about either mine or someone else's, or how to address it or how to speak about it on a sort of personal level. So again, it was one of those where it's like I've had that surface level experience. It would be great to dig a little bit deeper, find out what's going on under the surface with people, with groups, with how people work, why sort of certain situations arise, and all that sort of stuff.
I think it's although it's, sort of workplace training, for people to become mental health first aiders for their organization, for their workplace. In some ways, it's useful training for anyone to just understand more about mental health, about how to effectively support someone, like you say, not give them advice or tell them, oh, you really should do this, or have you tried going for a walk, but instead to explore what they'd find helpful. And then really encourage them to look out for some support for themselves alongside um, that real um, focus on looking after your own mental health and well-being as well, not giving so much of yourself that you put yourself at risk when you're helping others.
And do you know what? That was something that I definitely learned from that, was that you're not there as a professional. You're not someone who's sort of trained and is professionally available and ready to give that sort of advice and information. You have to protect yourself as much as you're trying to help protect someone else. And like, it's okay to not want to have that conversation, and it's okay to not know exactly what to do. You don't need to come up with solutions. Like, you just have the information to hand. How to work your way through a conversation with the wonderful algae,
Mhm.
and really listen, that active listening aspect of it, rather than trying to offer solutions all the time. Or, have you tried this? Well, what about this? This worked for me. So,
And that's so many of us do that. It's a natural thing to
yeah.
do, to say, "Oh, I know exactly what you need to do." But generally we don't.
No.
Only the person you're talking to knows what would be helpful for them. And that algae framework, that's the sort of proven effective way to guide a conversation in mental health first aid. I'm really glad you remembered it. I'm not going to test you on it right now.
Do you know what I did revise before we recorded. I was like, Kerry's coming in. She's going to ask me.
She's going to test
Yes,
me again and
because
make sure
that
I
was
can recite it.
if you do it, if you're doing the 4-day course, especially every single day, it's going to be, and pop quiz. What's the A in algae, Casey? Ah.
Absolutely. But it gives you then that confidence. If you
It
can
does.
remember it, it
Yeah, it
hopefully
does.
gives you some
And do you know what?
confidence.
Like, I think of it as like, even if I never use this with a colleague, even if I never use this in my life, even just using it for myself and being able to stop and be like, okay, well, what would I say to someone in the same situation as me? What advice would I offer? And for me, it's more just about being prepared, rather than sort of going out of my way to talk to the rest of my colleagues and be like, there's got to be something wrong. Like, I need to use this. Like, it's a case of, just in everyday conversations, that I will hear things differently, and something will pop up and I'll be like, okay, there's something just to check in on there. And maybe not right now, maybe now isn't the time, but I'll just bank that and then go away and have a private conversation at another time and just be like, oh, I realized you mentioned that. Like, just want to check in. Like, is that okay? Like, and I think it's just allowed me to hear people better and clearer, and sort of not necessarily read between the lines and work out what's going on in someone's life, but just be more alert to certain phrases, certain changes in someone's personality, etc. Um, and just ask the question. And if there isn't anything going on, if they were just having an off day, then so be it. But at least I've asked that question. And that for me was a big, big learning. Like, as I say, my previous career, broadcasting, I'm always, when I talk to people, I'm listening for the next, like, interesting bit. What can I extract from someone to keep the conversation going and get the best for my audience from a work perspective? And I think that made me good at asking the right questions, but not necessarily listening. When you're broadcasting, sometimes there's so much going on in front of you or around you, you can't be 100% listening to someone. But this was like a stop. Repeat back what they say. Make sure that I'm fully understanding it. And if there is help that I can provide, then let's do that.
Brilliant. And like you said, you don't have to have the answers. It's not about fixing it, solving it, or even knowing the right thing to say, but actually just listening and being there with someone. You can't underestimate that. Do you think it sounds like you have used some of the skills that you learned. Do you think you've sort of used those mental health first aid skills in the workplace since the course?
Yeah, I have had conversations with a few colleagues that I don't think I would have had otherwise, where I've heard certain things and not necessarily have gone out of my way to be sort of in a isolated private situation with them, but have found myself in that situation and gone, why don't I ask? Like, I heard that this has happened. Like, is everything okay there? Anything that you want to talk about? That I think before I'd have been like, oh, that's a shame. And be like, if you need anything, I'm here, sort of, the usual human reaction, but without that applied knowledge of, no, I can actually help this person.
And I know that um, one of your colleagues trained as well. And it's part of a bigger picture. In any organization, it's not a legal requirement to have mental health first aiders, and it should never be a sort of single solution or a tick box that it's going to solve everything. It's part of a bigger picture towards creating healthy workplaces and keeping employees safe and well at work. What else is SPA doing to encourage employee well-being?
So we do a load of team days. I'm not going to say a load of team days as if we don't do work, but we, you know, we being part of a team and taking ourselves away from the office and doing stuff outside of work time and stuff like that is an active part of the office sort of culture. We're always talking about when's our next night out, when's our next sort of event that we're going to do. And that is actively encouraged. It's not a case of, guys, do that in your own time, crack on with the work. It is very much part of the culture. I believe it's what makes us feel like a family. Like, I think anyone in the office will say Spa is very much family vibes. Like, everyone gets along. There's not a bad egg in this office. Not even just saying that. Like, everyone gets along with everyone, which is amazing. I've been in environments where that's not the
Mm.
case whatsoever, and dreading coming into work because I know that I'm going to be faced with conflict or be around negativity, but there's none of that here. And even just having that want to say mental health first aid training is available. We've got some people. So Lucy, my colleague, who is the other mental health first aider, she's now gone on maternity leave with her first child. So it just leaves me, and I raised the point of it would be good to have a second person. Still, I know that maternity is temporary, but in those 9 months, there's going to be times when I'm away. There's going to be times where I'm not in a position to help due to work stresses, due to personal life, whatever it may be. And there will then be someone else that I can sort of share that load with as well, and we can support each other. And straight away, they've approached you and said, what are the options? We're looking at getting another person trained up, and we didn't know how that would go down. We didn't know if people would be keen for it, but I already know 2 of my colleagues who are like, yeah, I'll do it. If it, not necessarily if nobody else wants to do it, but like, I want to do it, but we'll give the other guys a go as well. Like, don't feel like you have to choose me. And again, that just sort of says everything there is to know about this group. It's not a sort of grab it with both hands, forget what anybody else wants to do. It's like, no, let's get the right person for this. If somebody else wants to do this, if it's important to them, then let's do it. And yeah, we've done sort of charity events. We've done some tree planting for one of our charity partners in Bedza. We've done just going out for walks. Mental health awareness week walks, just taking time away from the office, resetting.
I think you did a step challenge last
Did
year,
a
didn't
step
you?
challenge,
Yeah.
yes.
And smashed it, I seem to remember.
Yeah, some more competitive people than others, I'll be honest. I didn't realise how competitive some of this team was. I've been here just over a year, and by now I'm aware of who those competitive people are, because looking at the app, there were some people that I think didn't sit down for a week. But yeah, it's been whatever we can do to get involved. It just seems to be always the case that we're asking the question of like, what can we do as a team? What can we do individually? There's even talk of a marathon next year.
Wow.
Talk so far, but there is talk of some of us
Are
doing.
you talking about that or?
I am involved.
Wow.
At the moment, I feel like I need a target to achieve, and I think actually this leads me on nicely to what the sort of mental health first aider has allowed me to do, is recognise within myself. So I was in a car accident at the beginning of March, and physically it stopped me from doing all of my exercise, which for me was my outlet. So I've been able to recognise the changes in myself mentally, and I've been able to step back and say, right, if one of my colleagues came to me in saying they're feeling the way that I'm feeling now, what would I do? So, I've taken the first steps to get some CBT, because for me right now is what I feel like I need. And I don't believe I would have done that if it wasn't for the mental health first aid,
Thanks,
because I don't think I'd have
Casey.
recognised it.
Yeah, that's really important when we talk in any sort of mental health training that looks at what signs might you notice in others, signs of stress, signs of poor mental health, signs that somebody might be struggling. It is also a really good call to action for, oh, hang on a minute, I've been reaching for the biscuit tin too often, or I've been hiding myself away because I don't want to talk to other people. So that awareness and that recognition of perhaps when we're not doing as well as we could be it is really important. That awareness combined with the motivation to do something about it. And like you say, things like CBT can be so helpful for so many different people in so many different circumstances. Yeah, I'm sure that it will be really helpful for you as well.
Most people that I've managed to speak to since I've started within the team know that I'm doing this, because I don't think it's fair of me personally, and this might not be for everyone, but to do some mental health first aid training, be offering people information without showing that I take it up myself. Like I'd rather use that as inspiration for people to show that, I'm not just here as like the guru of mental health kind of thing. It's like I've just done the training to help push you in the right direction, and I've done it because I knew where to go. Whereas if one of you was a mental health first aider and I wasn't, I'd have had to reach out to you. So I know that it works because I'm the proof in the pudding.
Yeah. And it takes courage sometimes to do that, even in a safe, supportive, friendly organization. It can take real courage to say, actually, I wasn't doing too well. And this is what I did. And this is how I worked on my mental health and on my recovery. Even when it feels comfortable, it can still take huge courage and bravery to do that. But you're right, being able to show that vulnerability is a strength, and it shows other people that if you could put some work into your recovery and your mental health, it's okay for them to need to do that as well. So being able to share your own experiences is so powerful.
Yeah, and I think it opens up a conversation, and anyone who doesn't necessarily have a mental health first aider within their organization right now, even just having a conversation about the things that you've experienced yourself and sort of just sharing that the human experience of the way that all of our minds work. Even if right now you haven't done the mental health first aid and you don't know how to handle that situation, I feel like even just having those conversations is just a reminder that it's normal. You know, you're not alone. You're not the only person that's done it. But I definitely recommend that anyone who hasn't got a mental health first aider look into it and see if it's an option for you and the workplace. But just having the conversation is step one, right? It's, have in nurturing an environment where it's okay to talk about your past experiences or how you're feeling right now.
Absolutely. And it's why mental health first aid in any organization of any size can't just be a tick box. It can't be, right, well, we've trained mental health first aiders. That's kind of all we need to do. It has to go alongside that work that I know SPA and all of you are putting into to create that culture, to create an organization, a culture, a workplace where people do feel supported, where they can be honest, where they can bring their whole messy selves to work. Because we're all a bit of a mess sometimes, aren't we? But being able to show that and show up as yourself at work is huge. It's so important that you can be yourself at work.
Exactly, and I think even yourself, Carrie, in the mental health first aider training, being able to say to us like why you got into West Kent Mind, from is it an advertising background? What's
Yeah, more or less. Yes, yeah. Project management in retail branding. Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So big switch up,
Massive
and
change. Yeah,
this is now your life, and having that initial straight away when we get into it, like you asked us all to go around and say where we were from and why we were doing this course, but you included yourself in that as well. You were part of that conversation, and I feel like that brings us all on a level, and like that's what I, Lucy, and whoever does it next pass on to the team, is that we're all on a level. Like, we're not above you. We're not going to look down on you and be like, well, this is what you need to do. It's a case of like, okay, thanks for sharing that. Here's a bit of information. Here's this website. Here's this support channel. I'll check in again in a couple of weeks and we'll see where we're at.
yeah. And I do try when I deliver the training for any organization or, whether that's a private organization, another charity, in any situation, I try and create that atmosphere, that environment where it is okay to be honest and leading with that honesty and authenticity and vulnerability, I guess, myself. It's like you were saying, being able to say that you have experienced poor mental health and this is how you found ways to cope with that. I think being able to look back at my own experiences of depression and anxiety. And then, well, that led me into this new career, into mental health as a career, into training as a mental health first aider, and then becoming an instructor. That was all part of why I did the volunteer training for Shout, the text support service, and then um, did about 200 hours volunteering with them. That was the driver behind starting to volunteer with West Kent Mind and then joining the staff team. We don't have to have had our own experiences of mental ill health to support others, but um, certainly being able to reflect on them, reflect on how far we've come, reflect on what helped us, and be able to share that. I think it can be powerful for people. And it lays it on the table. It says, this is normal, this is okay to talk about. It's a normal thing that happens to anyone. And it's brave and strong to talk about it. It's not a weakness to say that you have had your own experiences or have your own experiences of mental ill health.
Do you see that as a sort of a superpower for yourself, that you you had a career in something completely different and you've taken a tougher time in your life and turned it into a positive, and now a career out of it, and you're able to share your experience, but also then pass that knowledge and techniques and skills?
I definitely think it informs everything I do at West Kent Mind, and it definitely informs my training, particularly business training, corporate training, because I've got that corporate background. I've worked with West Kent Mind for about 5.5 years, but it was the first time I'd ever worked with a charity. So I come from that corporate background. I was in the corporate world for 20 years. And yes, that did come along with my own experiences of mental ill health. And definitely that informs how I support others, how I train others to then support others. Um, Definitely it was kind of part of growth and discovery and learning for me. Um, I'm not saying that mental ill health is a good thing to go through, but I think it definitely can make you a stronger, more empathetic person. And I think it does mean that I can support others really well, really effectively, and I can then do that, deliver that training that helps others support others. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, bit of a chain effect, so
Mm,
that ripple effect, you know.
definitely.
I guess we know each other through me work at Spa, you work at West Kent Mind, but on a personal level, like, the more we talk, the more that I talk to my colleagues, you become connected on so much more of a level than just, oh yeah, that's Kerry from West Kent Mind. It's like, oh yeah, that's Kerry who has been through this and has taught me this and all those bits and pieces. So yeah, I love the that sort of connectivity that you have when you're putting minds together, rather than just that sort of turn up for the start of your work day, get in, do your job, talk about work all day, don't know anything about each other's like home life, or, whether that be positive, absolutely, or negative. Um, it just makes for a fully more enriched relationship.
I totally agree. Connection is everything. We thrive on it. And we won't always find that same connection with everyone. We'll have different relationships with different people in the workplace, out of the workplace. But just being able to be honestly, openly ourselves to the degree that we want to be, but feeling that we're accepted for who we are, for how we are, for what we bring. It's huge, and it hopefully does help people to feel accepted in their workplace and in communities. Mental Health Awareness Week is coming up, and the theme this year is community. That really resonates. And I was thinking about what community means for me. And community isn't necessarily, it is the bigger picture,
Mm,
but for me, it's sometimes that connection that you
yeah,
talked about,
yeah,
just that connection with your friends, with your peers, with the people who like you, accept you, love you for who you are, and knowing that there are other people that do feel that way about you. It's huge. It's
yeah,
enormous.
yeah. It's something we all crave, right? Part of the human journey, the human story is finding that connection. I don't know about you, but when post mental health first aid training, like I said about listening to people deeper and sort of hearing them more, I guess you could say. Have you had any experiences where you feel like you're maybe doing that so much that, every single conversation you have sort of gets to a point where you're like, I'm just meant to be having a conversation with this person. I'm just overanalyzing everything. Because I have found on a couple of occasions where I will question, is that something I should have picked up on? And then it's like, well, not everything is going to be that. Maybe see if it comes up again. But it's like, am I doing it too much? I guess is sort of the question that I ask myself. And I don't know if you've ever had that where you've sort of gone into conversations ready to jump in on that mental health first aid, but actually it didn't necessarily need that.
That's such a great question. And undoubtedly, yes, yeah. I think one of the things that when I first took the mental health first aid course, one of the things that it really taught me was not to be a problem solver.
Mm.
And especially with a project management background, that was for me an automatic go-to try and solve problems, um, which can be incredibly frustrating for the person you're talking to when all they want is actually you to just listen. So I think in all conversations now, um, I tend to try not to jump into that and not make assumptions about what the other person might want. And that has really helped me, just trying to kind of hold back and just listen before jumping to conclusions or um, making any assumptions or thinking that I know the answer and I know what they need. And that does help me to just perhaps take every conversation at face value and every conversation for what it is. But I do, and it's certainly related to that, I do find that when you are consistently the listener and you're consistently the person who offers that support, it can be draining and exhausting. Um, and it's something that you have to be really boundaried about and really careful about so that if I'm supporting others, who's supporting me? If I'm letting somebody else offload to me, who am I venting to? So I've had to put some really strong strategies in place to make sure that I'm not wearing myself out. I'm not giving too much of myself. I'm being supported in return.
I guess another sort of point on the flip side of that, I think from a colleague's point of view, there may be a reluctancy to want to say too much around people who've done mental health first aid training in case they think that you're going to analyze, properly overanalyze them and want to dig into it. What would you say to to those people that are maybe going, "Oh, Casey's now a mental health first aider. Anything that I say to him, he's gonna look into."
Yeah, that's a really good question. I did a physical first aid course 30 years ago. And within a week, I'd had to provide physical first aid to someone who crashed out snowboarding in front of me.
Right.
I haven't had to do it since, actually. So it's that idea of, oh, yeah, Casey's done a mental health first aid course. I better not say anything in case he tries to therapize me. Um, some really important things to remember are that, one, it's confidential. So we talk quite a lot about confidentiality in mental health first aid, and anything that somebody says to you is confidential unless you're worried that they're at risk of harm. Um, but also, you're not a professional. You are just their colleague or friend. You are just Casey. You're not trained to be a counselor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist. You're not trained to give them professional mental health advice. You're trained to listen. You're trained to be able to just listen and empathize, and maybe give them some suggestions or some information about what might be helpful, and normalize it. And it's that idea of it is normal to experience mental health problems, unfortunately, just as it's normal to experience physical health problems. Um, and yes, so it's just a conversation. It's a conversation between two people who care about each other's well-being. And it doesn't need to go any further. And yeah, Casey's not going to practice his CBT techniques on you.
No, no, definitely not. No,
It's
there's
just a
yeah,
conversation.
exactly that. Yeah, I'm a talker. I like talking to people anyway. So, fortunately nobody has sort of as I've been walking towards them, suddenly put their head down, headphones on, like, "Not here, I'm not here, I'm not," there's been none of that. So, as I say, the team around me have been brilliant with it, and a few conversations have already been had that I don't think I would have had. So, thank you for that, and on behalf of them as well, I guess, thank you, because I hope it's helped them
Mm,
in a way.
I'm sure it has, without knowing any details. Actually, that idea of just being seen and recognized by somebody and given the opportunity to talk about something if you want to, not to be sat down in front of a spotlight and forced to talk, not to delve into your childhood or even what's happened, but actually just to look at what might help. You're not feeling yourself, you're not doing too well. What might help you? That's enormous, and we don't always get that. We don't always feel seen and understood and heard. So to have someone in an organization who's had that training to recognize, to validate, to empathize, um, it is really important. Mental health first aiders need support too. So I'm really glad that with Lucy on maternity leave, you suggested that another person be trained as a mental health first aider. Do you feel supported in other ways? Do you feel like you could take a break from your mental health
Absolutely.
first aid
Yeah, yeah,
duties?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's never been a case of, like, how many questions have you asked people? How many conversations have you had? Like, it's just, we've provided you the facility to learn this skill. As and when you can use it, that's amazing for the team. But if you can't, that's all good. That's absolutely fine. Like, yeah, it's been i- fully supportive, even on I've recently discovered I've got carpal tunnel in my wrist.
Mm,
And straight away it was, right, what new equipment do you need? And just something as small as that, where for me, exercise is such a big outlet, and I've not been able to do that, to be able to support in my recovery without me even asking. It was the initial reaction straight away. If there was a second question, are you okay? What can we
what do
do
you
to help?
need? Yeah, yeah.
But that was so genuine and organic. There was no forced nature to it, and I didn't go away from the conversation thinking I could really do with a sort of ergonomic mouse and stuff like that to help me out. Like, I hadn't even thought of that. It was straight away, "What do you need?" And I was like, "Well, I've read that an ergonomic." Cool. Okay, let's get you one ordered. So yeah, the support and sort of acknowledgement of what we need as individuals, depending on what's happening in our world, is honestly top notch.
Fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It is important, and it doesn't always have to cost a lot. These small adjustments for physical health, for mental health, for our overall well-being, for depending on what that person needs at any given moment. Um, Sometimes they're things that help the entire workforce, so including things like investing in mental health first aiders. And it is an investment, it costs businesses money, but it's money well invested in terms of fostering and supporting a healthy workforce.
Yeah, exactly. And uh, from a human level, absolutely, that's the main thing. If businesses are really questioning whether they should invest in this sort of help, just think of how much, if you want to look at it from a financial point of view, how much money you could lose should your workforce all have to take time off for their mental health. Like, it's a no-brainer. The maths is very, very clear. Invest a little bit in people, and they will find you that money in the way that they work.
Mm.
Simple as that.
I totally agree in how long they stay with the organization because they feel supported and seen and heard and valued because they receive training that is useful not just at work but in their personal lives
Yeah.
as well.
Oh, I put it straight on LinkedIn. Don't you worry about that. Like, people know. Like, I was proud to go, like, I've achieved this.
I love
This
it when
is
people are really proud and they wear their lanyards and they are visibly mental health
and
first
my lanyard
aiders.
is on
I
my
love
desk,
it.
to be fair. I only wear
No,
black,
I
and
saw that earlier.
it is
Yeah,
bright green, so
you
there is a bit
can't
of an
miss
issue
it.
with the color scheme, but it
It's not
is proud.
brand
It's
colours.
proudly on my desk.
Excellent. And other than algae, do you think there's one message that you have taken from the mental health first aid course? I mean, there's loads,
Yeah, I
but
mean the usual. It's okay not to be okay. Like that. Is so true. but also that help is out there, whether that's me passing you on to more information, whether that's me passing you to another mental health first aider because I'm not in a position to do it. Like, I'm not going to reject you. I'm not going to turn you away and be like, no, not now. But it's just not going to happen, because I would hate it if it happened to me. So why would I do it to anyone else? So from that mental health first aider, it's knowing that they are there, and if they can't be there, they'll push you in the right direction. So there's always someone there.
That's a great message to take away, that there is support, whatever it looks like. There are things that can help when somebody is struggling. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.